anyway, thank you very much for coming to this panel this morning. Thank you very much for being part of the DeFi experience. It is an amazing time to be in DeFi, to be in crypto, to be in blockchain. It's just mind-blowing, and I hope you all, I'm sure you, because you're here, you know this. But what I was starting to say earlier, that this panel possibly is one of the most important panels that you could have attended today. And the reason is it's all about community. I don't say this community, this whole experience is nothing without community. It's community from the groups that I'm going to talk about here, communities that are following projects, following tokens, following coins, following movements. Community is everything about this, is the most important part of this whole industry. And it's important because we kind of lost our way. The financial crash in 2008 showed us how much we had lost our way. And now we're coming back again, and better and stronger. So anyway, without me going on, I want to introduce our panel today. These 4 people have set up amazing communities, and I want to, first of all, to introduce what the communities are, and then explain why it's important. And I hope at the end of this panel, if you haven't already joined a community, you join one. You join one of these ones here, you look out for communities in your area. We're now, thankfully, we've all opened up where we can go to meetups again in person, which is super. But join the community and get involved, because the return is so much better. So if I may start off by asking the guests here just to introduce themselves. Lawrence, I'll start with you. Can you tell us the community here, the group here, about your BBAG?
Are we using those mics or no, this one?
Yours, yeah.
So I set up and manage a community, BBAG, stood for Bit Boys and Girls. We started back in 2017, and the premise was to create a free and open space for like-minded individuals or people coming into the space to share knowledge, connect, and have discussions about trends in the market and projects, investments, pretty much, a place where everyone could come together without being preyed on by marketers, shillers, a free, curated, moderated environment where everyone could connect and, benefit from group discussions.
Brilliant. And just tell me, how big is your community now?
Now I'd say we have maybe around 900 active members. Towards the kind of peak in 2018, it topped out around 1,400 members. It spanned, at that point, 23 countries. Since then, it's somewhat centred back to the UK. We see the UK as the hub or the base. But yeah, we're about 900 strong at the moment.
Brilliant. Okay, so Bitcoin Boys and Girls, BBAG, and where can people find you?
bbag.io. I freed up some space. All of our channels were at max cap, but freed up some space in anticipation of this. So if anyone wants to join, bbag.io. And all of the threads or conversations exist across a number of moderated WhatsApp channels. We have dedicated channels for general discussion, transfer of knowledge and information, and then a number of sub-channels, DeFi, NFT, charts and signals, memes, which is always going to be one of my favorites. bbag.io, come check us out.
Because again, if you're listening today, and a lot of the talks you'll hear today, there's quite a lot of complex stuff if you're new to it, and you need to be part of a group to find people who can help you. You can ask stupid questions. There are no stupid questions, but you can ask these questions in the group. That's an amazing idea. So Paul, you're up next. Paul Gordon of CoinScrum. Tell us about your community, please.
Yes, I'm Paul Gordon. Prior to getting interested in crypto, I was a derivatives trader and broker in the city for a good 20 plus years. Got interested in Bitcoin way back in 2011, and then turned up at the first Bitcoin meetup in London, just up the road in Paddington, in September 2012, where there was 5 of us meeting. And the same 5 of us met for the next few months. Early 2013, the price of Bitcoin started going up, so more people started coming. And around April, May 2013, we suddenly had about 80 people in the pub. So it was that point that I decided to get it more organised and start organising more formal events, which we did. Organised over 250 free-to-attend networking and educational events. We used to run workshops for teaching people how to set up their wallets and nodes, etc. And yeah, communities have been very important in this space. Obviously, way back then, it was really only Bitcoin that we could talk about. Maybe a bit of Namecoin or Litecoin, but not much else. But we saw founders of Ethereum got introduced through our community. founders of companies such as Chainalysis, Elliptic, Blockchain.com, they're all either early stages of their companies or hadn't even been started yet. So to see them all come through, and especially at that time, and equally important now, for people to be able to get in a room, get together and share ideas is immensely important.
And I think important to note as well, sorry, this mic is doing funny things. Again, what Paul said, again, if you're a real newbie, how to set up your wallet. And even if you're not a newbie, how to set up different wallets, the ins and outs. There's real practical help in these groups, which I think is important, because I know about 4 years ago, I first stepped into this space. And I'm a fintech journalist by my background. But I'm not going, what are all these things? This is really confusing. And you need help. Well, not you need help, it's great to have help. So it's a wonderful example there. So Bridget Greenwood of The Bigger Pie, yours is a slightly different community.
Well, it's for women only. So I came into the space late compared to these guys in 2017, and I worked in a startup. And I came in through Bitcoin, and then I saw what blockchain could do in terms of the other applications. And we had a look around, and there just weren't enough women in the space. But the women who are in the space they have so well educated, they have so many degrees, they speak so many languages, they have a career history anyone would be proud of. And then they're building the space based on their vision. And so I thought, well, I don't want to be competing with these people, but I do want to hang out with them. So I wondered what the best way to do that is. And I asked them, as a woman in a male-dominated environment in this space, do you want to have more ability to be able to connect with other women? And ultimately the answer was yes. So then I formed The Bigger Pie in September 2019. And it's been invite only, because you guys will know, if you have a WhatsApp group and you send the link out, you get all the porn bots. So it's grown organically. We have incredible leaders across the world in multiple in different disciplines. And the community there is to more easily connect with other women in the space. But one of the things that I was thinking about when I was building The Bigger Pie was people have said they've had enough of talk. What we need is action. So everything that we do in there is to make sure that we're moving the needle. So I know that people have got a lot of work through that. I know people have got promotions and jobs through that. I know that people have, been connected. We make sure that we work with event organizers so that we can have experts on the panel who are also women. And we're looking at being able to help the marketplace with engineers and CTOs so that we can bridge that gap. If they happen to be women, so be it.
Good point, and I just want to reiterate some things that Bridget said. It's a women's group by invite, because as we know, there are very few women in this space, and actually this panel here is quite good because it's not a manel, it's not a man-only panels, and you go, and the speaker before was a woman, but there is still, I think something like 6% women in this space, and that's not good enough. I make the old joke that if the Lehman Brothers had been the Lehman sisters, we mightn't have had the crash in 2008, boom, boom. But anyway, we know we live in a world of 51% women, so we need women because there's too many decisions and choices and projects and things happening for it to be left to only half the population. And when I say women, I also include in that diversity too as well. It's such an amazing new world that we can look at. It's too important to leave just to the single white boys. Sorry about that. I love you all, but it's nice to have a bit of variety. So, and the other point too that Bridget said that you may not have picked up on, in that group, and in all of these groups, there's a lot of jobs out there at the moment. This is a very buoyant sector. There are jobs coming out our ears, and it's not just in programming, although obviously if you are a programmer, you are going to be in high demand here. But there's marketing, there's community managers, there's legal, HR, tax. So get ahead in the tax and you'll make a killing. So it's really good. These groups not only are supportive and helpful and educational, and maybe you're part of them already, and if you are, I'm saying, well done, carry on. But it just means that this is the best way to get people on board, is to have people in these groups, to educate them, to make them feel welcome and warm. So Jason, now you're the Bitcoin pioneers. You tell us about your group, and speak loudly, speak up.
I'll speak loudly and clearly. How's that sound? Does that sound okay?
You sound
okay.
Good.
My name's Jason Dean. I'm representing Bitcoin Pioneers today. You've probably seen the logo at the back of the auditorium there and an area outside. Our role really is to help drive the education and adoption of Bitcoin, really to new people in the UK. And the best way to sort of describe this is, I'm looking around the auditorium now, and I'm pretty sure everyone here is an expert on Bitcoin, or at least can answer all the basic questions about Bitcoin. But you think about where you were a few years ago when you first discovered, you read an article one day, you saw this word Bitcoin, you thought, what the hell is that? And wouldn't it be nice if you could talk to you now, then? Because it would have saved a lot of time and a lot of hassle. So the idea behind Bitcoin Pioneers was to create networks of everyone, sort of individual sort of networks and peer groups. And in that group, they are the person that everyone can go to. And just with basic questions, I'm interested in Bitcoin, not sure, a bit scared, don't know how to do it. So we partnered with Luno, which is a fantastic wallet, particularly if you're new to the space. And with that, our Bitcoin Pioneers can give away £10 worth of Bitcoin to anyone they like who wants to get started in this. And it's really just kind of a referral scheme with an educational edge to it as well, because each of those people who are referred are then invited to educational webinars, all laid on as well. It's all free of charge. And they can go through their Bitcoin journey. And what we've discovered by doing this is we've actually developed our own community of Bitcoin Pioneers. And I'm pleased to say we do have quite a few of our Bitcoin Pioneers here today. So it's fabulous to meet you all. And just one thing, Jim, before we carry on, I've just got to ask, is anyone here, if you've got one of these Bitcoin Pioneer t-shirts, can you just grab it out your bag and hold it in the air a second? There should be about 20 out of there. Can someone just hold on, if you've got them, just hold them up a second. Okay, we've got one over there. We've got a couple more around. Right, can I just ask one of our Bitcoin Pioneers just to collect those up? And I'll tell you why, because that's actually for our team today. They were delivered for our team to wear. Unfortunately, the reception people thought it'd be a very good idea to put out on a table. And quite legitimately, people took them thinking it was a freebie, but they are for our team. Can I just ask some of our Bitcoin Pioneers just to go around and collect the t-shirts? Can you just hold them up a second?
They'll trade them.
We've got Nikki out there, or Craig.
£10 a Bitcoin.
Or just put them on the side there if you can, that'd be great. Or just put them in the middle of the... Oh, it'd be fantastic, because we do need them today for the team. But sorry about that. That was not your fault. It's completely legitimate. It was the
I'm
team
sure,
here.
though, you're going to give us some Bitcoin.
Of course we do. We'll have £10 of Bitcoin. We'll swap it for you.
That's a reasonable, it's fair enough. And I think what's interesting what Jason is doing, and it happens in these groups, especially now in the in-person ones, like Andreas Antonopoulos used to do that, and still does, I think, when he gives his talks. At the end, they'll be all setting up wallets and giving away a few pence or a few dollars of Bitcoin. And it does make a difference, because when you have skin in the game, everything then becomes relevant. And that talk earlier, I was watching, I'm going, because I'm a journalist in the space, I'm not a financial advisor at all, but I'm watching them going, I've got to do this. And she's right, because you know the Chinese say, when's the best time to plant a tree? 200 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. So the same way is to start buying, and even, well, not necessarily revolution. Okay, now, I've just got the call. It's now just approaching 12 o'clock. It's the 11th of November, Remembrance Day for the wars. And so perhaps if I could ask everybody, it's in just for 1 minute silence, just to remember the people that gave their lives over the two wars. Thank you, everybody. That was well regarded. So now, to go back to our communities, what I'd like to do now is chat and just find out. I've been doing some interviews recently with different companies and the whole return to work thing. What have you learned from COVID? Because obviously everybody went online, and made bread and whatever. They posted recipes of their cats and dogs and, all went crazy. But what did you learn from COVID and being online that you will bring forward into the new world? Who wants to Jason, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I mean, it changed everything, didn't it? We did go online, and we found what we were doing with Bitcoin Pioneers, that suddenly people have more time to read, more time to learn about Bitcoin, and we actually changed our webinar system. Obviously, we were doing live presentations, and we changed it to webinars. And that actually has stuck, and it's working very well. I'm sure some other people have discovered exactly the same thing. But it also accelerated everything in terms of the Bitcoin and digital world. And I don't think that's going to go back anytime soon. But community-wise, I'm amazed actually how close everyone got just through Telegram groups. And as I say, we've been running the project about a year now, but this is the first time we physically met because of COVID today. So it is fabulous to see it. But the fact that we ended up with this beautifully warm and very supportive community, really sort of by accident, we didn't expect that to happen. And it's wonderful to be a part of it, really is.
Okay, so Bridget, what things have you learned that you'll carry forward?
So when we first had the lockdown and coronavirus came knocking on our door, if you remember it, we didn't know what was going on, and it was really quite scary. I remember my sister phoning me up and saying, please don't kill our parents. I was like, thanks very much for that. And then I saw Jana Pache and Victoria Thompson start to take charge of their local community, as in the physical local community. And I thought that's what we need to do. So we need to make sure that actually we're reaching out to our community, we're making sure that everyone's okay, that we have some form of socialization, that we can connect in a way that is positive. And yes, we have the opportunity to continue to learn and do a number of things. It also allowed us to really appreciate how global the community was, and that this idea of looking forward to meeting up with people in person, we didn't have to have that barrier. We could just jump online. We did morning coffees. We did, drinks in the evenings, and it was a wonderful way to get to spend some time and get to know more of the members.
Brilliant. And I think, Paul, you're guilty of all the cooking, I think, isn't it? You're guilty of all the cooking, are you, in your community?
Got dragged into one of Lawrence's cooking groups, so there's lots of sourdough staring matches in terms of who had the best sourdough. But no, I think it's been an interesting exercise the last 18 months. Probably everyone's experienced that the Zoom model was useful to a degree, but I don't think anyone thinks that they kind of assert physical gatherings in terms of where you really do networking and really get to know people over time. But then in this space recently, there's been a lot of focus around the Metaverse and 3D worlds. And from my experience, attending certain conferences in a 3D environment certainly made a big difference in terms of being able to replicate that physical experience. I think when you're in somewhere like London, you're kind of blessed with the fact that when we've hosted events over the years, we've never been short of content, because some of the biggest people are always going to be passing through London or the big centres, New York or San Fran at some point, which is great if you're in those locations. But if you're interested in this subject and you live in a remote part of the world, then you're missing out quite a lot. So I think seeing this convergence now and hopefully seeing some new technologies come into play will broaden that experience for everyone.
Okay, and Lawrence, the same for you. You said you were London. You were international. You're more London now. What impact did COVID have on your community and the Bitcoin boys and girls? And what lessons are you bringing forward?
I'd say it was a pretty exciting and scary time for everyone. One thing it certainly did was brought forward to the public, or to the mainstream, the narrative of Bitcoin as a digitally scarce asset in the face of all of these stimulus checks or stimulus packages. So from a macro perspective, there was a really interesting narrative or conversation that was going on. At the same time, we saw a significant uptick in engagement because everyone was at home and, frankly, everyone was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It was a really scary period. At the same time, it was quite warming to see the community come together as the resilience that the group or that the community provided to its members whether that was just a backbone for, a discussion around what was happening in the world, whether it was, even having a laugh about, some of the memes throughout that period were brilliant. But also, just kind of everyone came together a lot more. Even as Paul mentioned, we had, at the request of the community, we had a spin out for a cooking and baking channel. We're a primarily crypto group, but everyone's stuck at home with all this spare time, and at the popular demand by a number of community members, we created a cooking and baking channel. And you'd be amazed at how many crypto fans have, different sourdough recipes. So it was a very scary period, but also kind of, I really saw the community come together and provide a backbone of support to all of its members, which was, really encouraging, heartwarming, and, I think it certainly brought all of our members together, not in person. We obviously couldn't do any of the in-person meetups, but the engagement and I'd say the interpersonal ties between all of our members certainly grew throughout that period.
Do you know what's interesting? Just listening to the four of you talking about the impact of COVID, but the long term, the long COVID, but the good long COVID. And it's interesting, so we all went online. The tech was accelerated. There was a huge acceleration and interest because we had time to do it, I suppose. People became closer, although we were more distant. And as Bridget said, you could reach out personally as well as globally. It's that hybrid model that didn't really exist before. You could meet founders. That's a thing that's very important too as well, because this is still a nascent industry. The people who are making and shaking, they're here, they're in the audience, they're all around. You can touch them and feel them and shake their hands. And you know how nowadays people say, oh, I knew Bill Gates back in the day. Now, the people that are here now that are changing the world are with us. And that's very exciting to be part of that movement. The Metaverse, that's interesting too, because increasingly, I know Facebook announced it, but increasingly we are doing things online, and that's exciting because it's a different way of interacting. Decentralised held a festival there a couple of weekends ago, and I went in and I was the clunkiest avatar because I couldn't move her properly. But I was going, and I recognized some people in there. This is mad. This is people that are over in the States, whatever. And then the friendliness, and then the memes and cooking. It's amazing. Bitcoin will make you cook, not me, but everybody else apparently. So there are lots of things to be taken out of these communities. May I ask, is there, and when we discussed this before, is there a bit of tribalism? Two questions. How do you pick your community? How do you know which one you should go for? And are people kind of stuck in silos, or are they more open? Open question.
I'll go first. So we've worked really hard within the Bigger Pie to make sure that we are open and supportive, and there's no tribalism in there. We work a lot with other women in blockchain groups as well, and many of us are obviously in other groups, so we can hang out with the men as well. For me, I don't think it's picking a community. I think it's good to be involved with a number of communities because they will have a different focus, whether that's either, whether it's DeFi or whether it's a subject matter, or it could be more around the geographical location you are in, or it's just the tone of the community, and different communities will serve you different things. So I'm definitely not for tribalism. I'm definitely for open, and that's why it's called the Bigger Pie.
Yeah. Okay, so you think you pick and choose and dip in for one community for different reasons?
100%. You'll probably find a community that you like the best, but I wouldn't limit yourself in any way.
And I think actually that's a key point, isn't it? Because none of these communities are mutually exclusive. The women one might be slightly difficult for me to get involved with, but you can get involved with as many communities as you like. In terms of the Bitcoin pioneers, anyone can be a Bitcoin pioneer, and actually the people here today, you would probably make very good Bitcoin pioneers, and you can join the group and be set up as a Bitcoin pioneer and someone who can give away £10 and just help people get started. Because I bet you anything, doing what you do, you have people ask you all the time about Bitcoin, right? So now you can say, well, here's somewhere you can learn about it, and here's a little bit to get you started, and it really accelerates that process. And if you go to bitcoinpioneers.com, you will find some information about that, and if you'd like to get involved, we'd love to have you, because we're we're having a lot of fun with this, and there's something very satisfying about it.
Is there, and maybe I'll ask you, Lawrence, is there an age profile in your community?
So we did a survey in 2018, and the majority were between 21 to 35. We do even have, we've got I believe he's 72, one gentleman. So there is quite a wide age spectrum. Speaking to the kind of the topics or the silos, BBAG is protocol agnostic, so we don't have, we do now have a dedicated Bitcoin call channel, but that was quite recent. But, separate threads for DeFi, for NFTs. But one thing which Bridget touched on earlier, actually, which is that we've never advertised. The community has always grown by social referrals. And I think that kind of helps form the community rapport. If you know someone or you're brought in by a friend, it's word of mouth. You're naturally inclined to trust a referral from a friend, much more so than you would if, it's outward advertising. So having grown naturally by, social referrals organically has certainly helped to foster a sense of community amongst our members.
Again, this word community, it's so strong. Paul, were you saying back in the day where there was a tribalism when you were kicking off? Was it like, am I either a Bitcoin maximalist or, is there room for all the
well, it came that way. Obviously, I said at the beginning, we could only really talk about Bitcoin.
That's true.
At the first Bitcoin meetups, and you hadn't really gone through the scaling wars then, so we hadn't gone down the path of seeing all the Bitcoin forks, etc. But when Ethereum emerged, one of my underlying concerns, I was always uncomfortable with Bitcoin itself, that it kind of had this sort of cultish element to it or feel to it. And I think when Ethereum came along, that tribe took it to a new extreme. And look, these things are healthy, but people do need to take a step back and look more holistically, because there's no right and wrong. There's different sort of development mindsets. Bitcoin's always been a very slow and steady development mindset. If it takes 10 years to get somewhere, it will take 10 years. Ethereum came along, made development, made experimentation much easier, but also brought into play a lot of additional risks, which aren't necessarily inherent with Bitcoin. So look, I think there's always been tribes. Before the internet existed, we've seen this transition. We've seen, especially talking about a younger demographic, prior to the advent of the internet, tribes existed, whether you were mods or rockers or new romantics or ravers. And we kind of lost that in the early days of the internet. And when you saw kind of this technology emerge, you saw a kind of tribes forming on the internet around these technologies. So I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic. It's natural, but people do need to not get too consumed or too kind of hooked onto one thing, and need to take a little step back and review everything, I think.
Well, I suppose it's interesting, especially with all the other coins, there is a bit of pumping and dumping, and last year with the summer of DeFi, there was a lot of crazy stuff happening. But I suppose as long as you're not losing the shirt off your back, and you can talk to your friends.
Well, one of the jobs I think we've always done is that there's so much, especially in more recent years. I can't keep on top of everything. No one can keep on top of everything. So for community organisers, part of their role is really to do some level of filtering, especially for newcomers, because it's very easy for newcomers to get scammed in this space, and no one wants to see that.
Yeah.
So kind of our role is really to do some initial filtering. We don't get it 100% right, but at least know what is potentially interesting versus what's clearly a scam, which might not be obvious.
Which I think helps, because you see these things and FOMO, the idea, oh my God, what was that recent coin? Oh, Squid Games. They launched a token, you couldn't take it out. It went from 1 cent up to 4,000, and then it all disappeared because someone could take it out, obviously. So there's a lot.
No one saw that coming, did they?
No. Well, the TV series was very good. So anyway, just coming to the end. So one takeaway, give me one takeaway about what is the good bit about being part of a community. So for anyone here who hasn't already joined a community, I'll start with you, Jason. What's the best bit of being part of your community?
It's just knowing, I think, you have that support. And each of these communities do support in a slightly different way. But the fact that you might suddenly think, I've got a question about this, or I've got a question about that, and you can just reach out to someone, you're going to get an answer pretty quickly. And if they don't know the answer, they'll be able to put you in touch with someone who does know the answer. And to me, that always makes you feel like you're not on your own in this environment, which is moving crazily fast, as Paul was talking about. We can barely keep up with it, and we're in the industry. right? So imagine if you're fairly new to this is overwhelming at times. So it's absolutely that support, and it's fabulous to be a part of it, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
So it's like Google for Bitcoin, the groups. Yeah, okay. Bridget, what's your takeaway?
So for me, I learn best through conversations and through people, but I know lots of people have different learning styles. And within the community, you'll always have those who are quite chatty and quite active, but it's amazing the number of people who are in there and they're silent, they don't leave any footprint. But when you meet up with them or they suddenly message you privately, then you realize that actually they've taken a lot of value from just being in the group without necessarily participating. So depending on who you are, you know, we're all kind of outgoing, gregarious people and happy to be in communities. If you're more reserved, you can still join a community and get a lot of value in it. You don't have to be... you can absorb rather than be contributing.
That's a huge point. And I know I'm one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm in. It's my local choir. I sing at a choir at home. And for someone's birthday, everybody says happy birthday. I'm going, could we get that? Could we have a communal? But I'm part of my work groups that I'm part of. I often lurk, and I only squeak up or peek, DM somebody when there's something going on that I want to find out more about. And it's just nice to lurk, so you see what's going on, you're abreast of stuff. So that's really cool. Be a lurker. Okay. Paul, what's your takeaway from your group?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really the educational piece, and there's nothing you can't beat. I mean, I remember being extremely nervous about going to the first Bitcoin meetup because I thought it was going to be, I'm not a developer by background, it's going to be super uber geeky developers and I'm going to be out of my depth. But that wasn't the case at all. And as smart as many developers are, what I've learned over the years is they might know coding very well, but this covers such a broad range of kind of ethereal topics, brings it all together. Anyone can have input. So, always, I think the most important thing, especially if you're new, is to come in, ask questions. And what I've always found is, even the smartest people in this place are always willing and happy to, share their thoughts and educate people as well. So just be, open to going up and asking questions. Cool. I think that's the most important.
Ask questions and learn things. And you're right, it is a very giving community. That's for absolutely sure. Lawrence, what's your takeaway from your community?
For me, it's mostly, I think, the reach of the community. And there's a real sense of reciprocity between members. Frequently, we'll have a member post a question, whether it's, a query about a certain protocol, or more importantly, they're looking to reach an individual within the space. And what I really recognize and, feel passionate about is seeing the community come together and pool resources, whether it's to make introductions, to collaborate. We even have a joke, BBAG LinkedIn, there's been a number of people who have found new jobs or been placed in positions through the networks that they've made in the community. So it's that sense of kind of reciprocity between members, that everyone's willing to help each other because they have that community and the shared network in common.
Brilliant. So we have got Google for Bitcoin, be a lurker, ask questions, and you'll get the answers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope if you're not already in a community, you will stand up and join one, create your own, because that support is amazing. People here have been in the business a long time, and they will acknowledge it moves so fast. We need help, we need guidance. So may I ask you to thank Lawrence Tilli, Paul Gordon, and Bridget Greenwood, and Jason Dean for their time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I haven't forgot about those T-shirts.
T-shirts. Or we'd have naked Bitcoin pioneers.
Yeah, the Bitcoin pioneers are here today. Hopefully when they get the T-shirts, they will be around. So if you do want to speak to them, please do so. Thank you.